Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Last week's video got a very powerful reception. Last week's video was all about Tailwind and just kind of giving you an introduction to what Tailwind is and kind of giving you my reason why I think Tailwind is pretty awesome. There was a lot of great comments on that video. As is the case, there's always some more polite and a lot of more rude comments, but the general theme of these comments was ones of curiosity. Some people already love Tailwind, so for you, this video is not necessarily for you, but I still encourage you to watch it. But for those of you who are still on the fence about Tailwind, why the way it does things is good, this is the video for you. This is the video where I'm going to kind of argue how and show you how Tailwind makes design and by extension CSS easy. Now, the first thing that is the weirdest thing about Tailwind is its utility-first way of being used. Its API is just class names, and each class name, by and large, only has one CSS property inside of it, which on its face sounds stupid. Like, that seems wasteful, that seems not very extendable, it just seems wrong until you start thinking about why it's great, which is an easy thing to say. I was actually going to go through and find a lot of reasons to kind of persuade you, the viewer there, why utility-first CSS APIs are actually awesome, but wouldn't you know it, Tailwind did it for me. So rather than me try to be better than Tailwind, I'm actually just going to point you to this page right here, this utility first page that actually goes in depth about why a utility first API design is actually great. Read this at your own leisure, but what I want to really highlight here is these sections. So one thing that is very powerful about CSS class names is that you don't have to invent class names, which how many .container classes have you written in your life? And how many .container inner and .container wrapper classes have you written in your life? With utility class names, that goes away because you don't have to deal with these abstractions. With utility classes, you're just dealing with the styles themselves. Point number two is your CSS stops growing. So I've seen some arguments that the size of Tailwind is very large, which yes, raw Tailwind is very large, but they have tools in place that let you minimize it greatly. Like, this is the uncompressed size, which is huge, but it's the development build. And when you actually go to production, it uses purge CSS to actually purge away all the class names that you actually don't use in your product. So you can actually get it really, really small. But it means that there is a finite list of class names in your CSS because you're not going to have to make two different .container class names that have both display flex, justify center. You just use the different Tailwind class names to do those styles themselves. And this is another one, which was an interesting comment I saw, is that by using utility-first class names, changes feel safer. Somebody was saying that one of the strengths of CSS is that you can easily make global changes. And to you, I say, no, that is the scariest thing about CSS, that it is global by default. That means if you have some common .text header class name, and you want to change that globally, there is no easy way for you to regression test to see what that one small change will look like everywhere. As opposed, if you have just atomic utility class names, you know that when you actually move and modify those names on the HTML element, you're modifying it on the actual HTML on the page itself, and it's constrained just there. So it's nice and localized. It's very safe to be able to revise code. Another argument I saw is why not just use inline styles? And the big benefits that utility classes have is that it has constraints, which I'm going to get back to in a second because I think that's even a bigger topic to talk about. You can't use media queries with inline styles. With utility class names, you can. And also, you can't do hover focus in other states, which utility class names you can. But the thing that I think is most powerful with Tailwind is this idea of dealing with constraints. And what that actually extends to is that there's kind of two sides of Tailwind's utility class names. There's the one purely just functional utility, like the most utility class names. And the example that I have for those is a CSS class names that you otherwise could write yourself. Like here's a class name visible, and all it adds is visibility hidden, invisible, visibility hidden. Or for example, flex. You can have flex direction, right? Flex direction row. These are utility class names. There's nothing special about these. You can easily add them into your own custom class names if you wanted to. There's nothing special about this at all. But there's another side of these class names that is the thematic class names, for lack of a better word. Tailwind comes built in with a very nice and pretty default theme. And a lot of the utility class names provided by Tailwind pull from this theme. And what that lets you do is kind of create a consistent and coherent theme for the entire design of your application. Which means that when you're thinking about colors, you think about it as a theme and you expose it through the different utility class names that are available. You think about spacing, holistically. You think about the design tokens or the base spacing elements and how big you want them to be. And as those are expanded throughout the application, you get to use them in a consistent manner. So for example, with font size, you have here all these utility class names, text extra small, text base. And it has these font sizes attached to it, which tie back into Tailwind's theme. An easy way for you to make a site not look exactly like a Tailwind site, which is I think is hard to do by itself, is just customizing the font size items for each class name. So you can completely change the scale of your website if you want to, which makes for things looking correct together. And the way that you can customize things is through Tailwind's theme, where is it? Their theme config object. And it's like it's a lot of things that you can customize, which is why I don't bother. Here's all the spacing, right? Allows you to customize the global spacing and size and scale for your project. So you can just think about the entire sizing scale for your entire project and decide what you want it to be. And then these values are inherited by padding, margin, width, height, all these things so that they actually work together correctly. And trying to do that yourself, especially if you're not very well versed in design, is a lot of time and effort and not really the best use of your time and focus, frankly. So I would actually delegate it all to Tailwind, let it handle the structure for you. And if you want to customize it, you have this framework to play within that lets you customize it. So enough of this theory. Let me actually show you a concrete example of this. So I actually went through and I installed Tailwind in a Next.js project. It was originally going to be Create React app, but I actually hate how inflexible Create React is, which is also a big selling point. One Create React app is the same as every Create React app, but you can't customize CSS at all. You have to install this thing called Create React App Configuration Override. I'm not going to deal with that. Instead, my new favorite thing is Next.js. If you shouldn't be too surprised about that. I've already scaffolded up the project, and I've done essentially this guide of installing the Tailwind files, adding the config files. So if I actually go here, you can see that I've actually done all the things required to get Tailwind up and running in this little project. So I'm just going to say add Tailwind, and let's save that. And this is running right here. So this is the Tailwind project. If I go to index, I will have this title say, hello, MeTube, which is my very selfish YouTube page. But what I want to show you is kind of how you can actually use Tailwind to make things fast. Let me just do a little split screen. This is my go-to way of coding. Let's kill this styles. Let's remove this from here. Let's just zero out everything. And the first thing I want to do, welcome to my site, save it here. Very plain, very vanilla. There are no styles here at all. And the first thing that I might want to do here is start adding some Tailwind styles. So I can do text. Let's see, I'm going to make this be 6XL for my header class name. I want the color for, let's make it be green. So let's do text green, all these shades. Let's make it this nice dark green. We'll have it be bold. Let's save it. Ooh, looks good. It's actually a little bit too big for my taste. Let's actually bump it down. And this is kind of what I like about Tailwind is I can easily just play within the constructs and just see how things look to my liking. Of course, I have to use some utility class names. So we can do flex, justify, center, align, center, align items, and of course, when I can't remember it, I can actually go to the docs and do align items, which is items center. There we go. I'm not going to profess to knowing everything, but I save that, nice and centered here. Let's add some padding. Now, this is a shorthand that most utility CSS frameworks use, where you have like P for short. So I can usually do P top, let's say 6, to have that be padding top. If I wanted to, I could have it be top and bottom for the y-axis. So I actually do this here. So padding top, padding bottom for 6, which is fine. And then let's add a little paragraph and say lorem, because that's nice and easy. Whoops, I meant to say this needs to be flex column. Nice. There's not enough spacing here. Oh, and there's also not enough spacing on the side. So now I want there to be padding around my entire page. So actually I can just delete this Y and actually have it be padding everywhere. And it's nice and compressed. You can see me kind of moving here. And then here, what I usually do in this case, if I want there to be spacing here, I don't want every heading to have padding top and bottom. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. So I could do padding, well, let's do margin. Let's do margin Y4. I could do that, but then I'm adding margin to the top, which I don't want it to do. So instead what I can do is actually just go here, class name, and do margin top 4 to easily add that spacing. And this is what I really like so far, is that like I've actually made a layout here already, and I haven't had to think about class names. I had to think about like making these one-off things. Like I don't have to make like, I don't have to name this header paragraph, right? I don't have to worry about that. I'm just using the utility class names to make my site together. So this is fine, but like if I'm gonna have H1s across my site, I don't wanna have to copy and paste this style here, right? So if I do, about me. I don't want to copy and paste these styles every time. And this is a big complaint that I heard in the comments where it's like, this is not extendable, which is fair, but Tailwind has a solution for that. One, you could easily make a React component for this. If you want to, an H1 component, which seems a little heavy-handed, especially when you're just dealing with an H1 tag. So instead what you can do is you can extend Tailwind and add your own base styles. So here we have a whole page that shows you how. Half the battle here is always knowing these pages exist, let alone knowing how to use them. But you have right here a way to add base styles. So what this is saying is that this layer thing is a Tailwind construct. It's the PostCSS plugin that says any styles you add in here, inject them into this layer. And that's important with CSS because order matters with CSS because it's a crazy language, really hard. So this is a way for you to actually say where these things should be injected into the page. This apply is essentially a way for you to take the CSS properties of a Tailwind class name and inline them here. So actually I can go here, let me just grab this text and cut it, and grab this text and cut it. Let me save that first. Things are gross now. Let's go back here, save this, presto changeo, failed to compile. Let's just remove that for now, just so I don't have to worry about it. Compiling successfully. Here we go. Bold. I guess bold wasn't actually a class name that existed, so that's a nice thing to know. There we go. Font. It's font bold. So let's do font bold. Let me save that and see if these things actually pump together. Oh, there we go. Nice and bold. And now I have extracted the text to actually be nice in here, so I don't have to worry about making these class names. So that's one way to make Tailwind your own. Like you can actually define your base H1s and not have to make these custom components everywhere. And if you extend this even more, you can do that with buttons, right? So with a button, you can have a button that says, push me, and then just touch me. Let's do class name equals, so let's say this, here's my button. That does not look like a button at all. Let's do a class name here, margin bottom 8, just to give me some space there. So here I wanted to, let's see what it looks like to use Tailwind to make a button. So I want there to be a border, right? I want the rounded corners, so border radius, just do rounded normal. Border color, border blue. No, I want it to be green, right? This is the green theme. So the border color is going to be darker. So I'm going to do 8. I'm going to do background green, make it a little bit lighter, 500. And then I want to have the text, we'll do it gray, 50. And I'm going to have, let's save that. Look at that, it's a button. Not the prettiest button, but let's do some padding. Let's do Y to be 4, and we'll do X to be 2. Okay, that's way too big. Let's bump those down by half. Still way too big. 1. There we go. Let's do this. Nope, definitely need 1. So actually, now those are the same, so I can just do P1, right? Nice and there. Or maybe do PX2. Yeah, that looks good, right? So PY, top and bottom, and X. This color looks crazy to me, so let's actually switch this up a little bit. Let's actually bring this back. Let's bring this closer to the border color. Let's do 700. Ah, that looks nice. Then we can also do shadow. Let's do it, make it a little bit bigger. Shadow large. Look at that. Oh, that's a weird thing, but we can also do hover. We'll do background green. I'll make it a little bit lighter. Like that. Hover. Look at that. So we just made a button really quickly just using the utility box that Tailwind provides out of the box. Now there's 2 ways that you can make this reusable. You can make your own custom React button, which essentially just returns the button from above, right? You can just do here, we'll do this be children. And then we'll have this be, don't need this class name, button, save that. Things are just fine as is because things are being reused. Of course, you can actually make your own custom class. You can do button green and then just do this whole apply dance right here. Let's save that here. Let me go like this. Let's save that. Let's see if it gives me an error again because I actually use this class that doesn't exist. Compiling. Still good. If I save this, the button looks gross, and I can just do button right there. Oh, I meant button green. Look at that. Just be my own custom component. And then if you have multiple buttons here, let's have a bunch of buttons here. Let's wrap that in a div. You can just start using Tailwind to just lay things out. So again, here I actually want them to be in a row. So I'll do flex, column. And then there's this really cool thing that Tailwind has for spacing, which I got mad about because the page is called Space Between. There's no Dave Matthews Band on that page, if you get that reference. But then what's cool is that it does a very common thing that I myself have to do a lot, where you can easily do space Y, and let's say 4 to keep in the same number that I've been using elsewhere. Save it, nice, easy spacing throughout. And this is me just kind of using, so I have Tailwind experience. So this is probably easier than it actually looks. To learn the class names is definitely a battle, but once you start understanding how Tailwind structures its things and where to look, you can easily start making things together. So like here, this is margin top, but now let's make this margin Y, nice and spaced out. And things are just working together. And I've now started making a page which I think on the surface looks pretty damn good without trying too much or too hard. So that was pretty nice. So that was kind of a quick little theory and design about how Tailwind can make design really easy. There's definitely an upfront cost to learning it, but I think a lot of the pain points people have said are actually not valid. I think there's actually an argument against them. And B, Tailwind has escape hatches for those cases that are completely valid. So I definitely encourage you to try out Tailwind on your own. Expect to go really slow. Try it while watching some TV and just mucking around on the website. Expect to go slow. But once you actually get up and running, you can actually design things really quickly. And for me, as a dumb engineer, I find that invaluable. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching if you did. Become a subscriber if you are not already to see more videos like this. And I'll catch you again in the next one. Stay happy, stay coding.